They say knowledge is power, and this is especially true in war. Knowing who your enemies are, where they are, how many of them there are, and what their plans are is crucial. In the Second World War, intelligence was everything, and the intelligence gathering or espionage conducted in those war-torn years laid the foundation for intelligence organizations as we know them today. As by the very nature of the job, the names of many of the spies who risked their lives behind enemy lines remain unknown. Some names, however, were later declassified by the various intelligence agencies of the world, and the impacts of their clandestine activities were, at least in part, laid bare. In this video, we're going to turn the spotlight on 3 World War II era spies who influenced the outcome of the bloodiest clash in human history. When the original leader of the French resistance spy network Alliance, or Noah's Ark, was arrested about a year into the German occupation of France, command of the network fell into the capable hands of French resistance fighter and secret agent Marie-Madeleine Fourcade. Alliance was one of the largest and most successful spy networks of the Second World War, and under Fourcade, its primary objective was to gather intelligence on German troop movements, naval movements, gun placements, and weapon programs inside of France. They would then relay this information to Britain via covert radio networks and couriers. Under Fourcade, Alliance grew to include some 3,000 agents who were hiding in the shadows and, even better, plain sight in every large town in France. Fourcade's contributions to the Allies were many, but the following 2 were perhaps her most significant. Some 3 months prior to the Allied D-Day landings early in June 1944, Fourcade's spy network provided Allied command an incredibly comprehensive 55 feet long hand-drawn map of German fortifications on the Normandy shore, which proved vital to the ultimate success of the Allied landings and victory in the war. Also, an agent under Fourcade by the name of Jeannie Rousseau, another female French resistance fighter, managed to trick some German officers into disclosing information about the development of the V-1 flying bomb and V-2 rocket, with which Hitler intended to raze London to the ground. Using this intel, the Allies were able to raid German rocket development facilities and disrupt the V-1 and V-2 programs. As for Fourcade herself, the father of her unborn child was killed, and she gave birth on the run. She was arrested not once but twice by the Gestapo, and the second time she managed to escape by stripping down and squeezing her naked body through the window bars of her cell. Later, expecting to be captured and tortured to death by the Gestapo, and as a devout Catholic, she asked her priest if committing suicide by munching cyanide pills would consign her soul to hell. The priest reassured her that it would not, as her suicide would be a means of resisting the enemy. Fortunately, it never came to that. Fourcade survived the war and passed away in 1989 at the ripe old age of 80. A German journalist and Soviet spy, Richard Sorge, was active before and during the Second World War, playing the role of a German journalist for the Soviets in Germany, Japan, and elsewhere in the world. He was born to a German mining engineer and his Russian wife in the Russian Empire, though his family moved to Germany with his father's contract expired. In 1924, Sorge joined an intelligence gathering arm of the Soviet secret police. 5 years later, he joined the Red Army's military intelligence and worked as a spy in the UK, China, and Germany. In Germany, he was assigned to the terrifying objective of infiltrating the Nazi Party. He was then assigned to Japan, where he carried out the majority of his clandestine work. Before Sorge left Germany, however, he acquired a false newspaper journalism assignment as a cover for his trip to Japan. As a side note, his infiltration into the Nazi inner circle had been so successful that Reich Minister of Propaganda Joseph Goebbels attended his farewell feast. Setting foot in Japan, Sorge started to establish his shadowy web, infiltrating the German embassy and gaining the trust of high-ranking German diplomats, namely one Eugen Ott, who soon became ambassador. Sorge grew quickly into one of Ott's most trusted advisors because Sorge, as it turned out, knew a ton about Japan as well, having befriended a Japanese man who worked as an advisor to the Japanese Prime Minister Kono Fumimaro. All the juicy intel Sorge pocketed in Japan he radioed back to the USSR. Among Sorge's greatest contributions to the Soviet cause were his continual warnings about a German invasion of the USSR and, conversely, his assurance that Japan would not invade. As early as spring 1936, Sorge had been sending intel about negotiations for an anti-communist agreement between Germany and Japan, which was an early hint at Hitler's intentions to march his armies into the USSR. Sorge continued to send intel like this back to Russia until literally a day before Hitler put Operation Barbarossa on the ground. He also informed the Soviets that while the Germans would invade the USSR, the Japanese had opted instead to invade the British, French, and Dutch colonies in southern Asia. This allowed Stalin to move his forces stationed in the Far East who were waiting for the Japanese to the west, where they could stem the German invasion. This was absolutely huge. As for Sorge himself, he was arrested in 1941 when one of his Japanese operatives spilt his beans. Sorge was judged as a spy and sentenced to death, and he was made to wait 3 years before they finally executed him. It wasn't until 2 decades later that Sorge's contribution was recognized by the Soviet Union at large. Spaniard Juan Pujol García served in the Spanish Civil War on both the Republican and Nationalist sides, though he proudly remembered never firing a bullet for either. After the Civil War, he developed a deep hatred for totalitarianism, and when World War II broke out, he wanted to do his part to prevent its spread. In his efforts, he became a game-changing double agent. Initially, García went to the Brits in London and offered them his clandestine services, but they sent him away empty-handed. So he took matters into his own hands, assuming the identity of a Nazi-loving Spanish government official who travelled to London on official business, and using this identity, contacted a German Abwehr agent in Spain's capital, Madrid. The Abwehr took him in, gave him the codename Alaric, and tasked him with going to London and setting up a spy network of British agents. If they only knew half of what this menace was getting up to. García, the sly devil, instead moved to Portugal, from where he sent credible reports back to the Abwehr, making it out as if he were in London carrying out his mission. He created an entirely fictional network of spies across Britain, which was codenamed Arable by the Abwehr. After providing the Germans misinformation and causing the Kriegsmarine to waste valuable resources on the hunt for a non-existent Allied convoy, García's work came to the attention of the British intelligence agency, which had earlier rejected him. They took him on as a British agent and stamped him with the codename Garbo. He caused some serious trouble after that. García/Alaric/Garbo's principal way of screwing with the Germans was to supply them with sound yet delayed intelligence so it couldn't be used effectively and he wouldn't blow his cover. To further secure his cover, García would often blame the delay on his fictitious British agents. On one occasion, he reported that one of his agents had fallen ill and perished, and to support his claim, he even had an obituary published in the local British newspaper. The Germans were so convinced that they paid a pension to the dead, fictitious agent's widow. This is all gold, but García ruined the Germans in the lead up to Operation Overlord and the D-Day landings. As part of the Allied deception codenamed Operation Fortitude, García sent some 500 radio messages to the Germans, misinforming them about the coming Allied invasion and causing them to divert precious troops and resources from Normandy to Calais, where, wink wink, nudge nudge, the landing would take place. This deception was so effective that the British king awarded García with a membership in the Most Excellent Order, while the Germans ironically awarded him the Iron Cross. As for García, he'd put a serious stick in the spokes of the German war machine, and so, with the help of British intelligence, he faked his own death to get away from it all. Until 1988, García soaked up the sun in a beach town in Venezuela, knowing full well that he was the king of World War II trolls. Through deception and sabotage, these 3 secret agents altered the course of the Second World War and of human history. But what do you think? Would you like us to make more videos about spies and stuff? Can you think of any other agents who changed the course of the war? Let us know in the comment section below, and we could make a part 2 of this because there are so many cool agents out there whose stories are just waiting to be told. And just before you go guys, make sure you check out the links in the description below. We have our Relax Jack music channel where you can check out the music played in this video unobstructed, our Patreon where you get access to an exclusive video that you won't see on this channel once a month, and our official merch partner store where you can find some really sick designs for history t-shirts. Anyways guys, as always, thank you so much for watching and I hope you learned something new.